So here we are again on our Sunday conversation, and around the world we go. I get comments from people all over the world. Thank you for those comments. Thanks to those who come live on Sundays. And I was in New York for a week, which was a kind of a fun and interesting experience. And I would say that 80% of everybody wore masks. When people jogged by me with a mask on, running along the Hudson, I thought, what is that person thinking? I don't know how they're even able to run. I can hardly even walk with a mask on because I'm getting oxygen deprived. But it's interesting how mindless people are. I saw a interesting little story about what looked like, I'll just try and paint the picture in words here, little children coming out of a school, probably, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. They had their masks on, and there was a police officer standing there in full, police garb, gun and all. And then there was like the principal standing on the other side, and the children had to walk between the police and the principal. And they were leaving school, which is interesting because they weren't going into school, they were leaving school. And the story looked to me like this is what they had been dealing with all day long. And we had just talked about it here before the talk about the indoctrination of us, or even our children. But think about that for a moment. If you were brought up having to wear a mask, not being able to complain or, really do anything about it, it's part of your life, what you were brought up as. We're now bringing up a generation of kids that will not argue and fight. We're not bringing up Trumps. We're not bringing up Roy Masters type people. We're bringing up these kids that are afraid to speak up, afraid of this horrible virus, afraid of the law, the principal, their parents, their friends' parents, their friends now because everybody tells on each other. You're bringing up children that will have fear woven into their spirit, which will then hold their spirit down like a net. It's very, very sad to me. And so I look at kind of where we are, and I see that, of course, all of us, I believe, see that this is all fear-based. All of these different variants of this and that and all the different news and all the tactics they're using is to keep us all in fear. And when you live in fear, you're living in doubt. And if you live in doubt, well, how can you make a clear thinking decision? Because the fear isn't clear thinking. The doubt is what it is. So you just stay in that spot and rot. And it's a very sad situation. So on the way back from New York, I watched a video with Elon Musk, of which I think everybody should watch because there's more things that we should be conscious of. And I'm going to weave it into this. I think I'll play it for this group here and the audio of it for you folks that are listening. Matter of fact, let's pause and I'm going to do that.
I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. Mark my words, AI is far more dangerous than nukes.
I try to convince people to slow down AI, to regulate AI. This was futile. I tried for years.
The biggest issue I see with so-called AI experts is that they think they know more than they do. And they think they're smarter than they actually are. This tends to plague smart people. They define themselves by their intelligence, and they don't like the idea that a machine can be way smarter than them, so they discount the idea, which is fundamentally flawed. That's the wishful thinking situation. I'm really very close to the cutting edge in AI, and it scares the hell out of me. It's capable of vastly more than almost anyone knows, and the rate of improvement is exponential.
It feels like we are the biological bootloader for AI. Effectively, we are building it. And then we're building progressively greater intelligence. And the percentage of intelligence that is not human is increasing. And eventually, we will represent a very small percentage of intelligence. It's going to come faster than anyone appreciates. I think it's, with each passing year, the sophistication of computer intelligence is growing dramatically. I mean, I really think we're on an exponential improvement path of artificial intelligence. And the number of smart humans that are developing AI is also increasing dramatically. I mean, if you look at like the attendance at the AI conferences, they're doubling every year. They're getting full. I have a sort of a young cousin of mine who's graduating from Berkeley in computer science and physics, and I asked him, like, well, how many of the smart students are studying AI and computer science? And the answer is all of them. With a better approach or better outcome is that we achieve democratization of AI technology, meaning that no one company or small set of individuals has control over advanced AI technology. I think that's very dangerous. It could also get stolen by somebody bad, you know, like some evil dictator of the country could send their intelligence agency to go steal it and gain control. It just becomes a very unstable situation, I think, if you've got any incredibly powerful AI. You just don't know who's going to control that. So it's not as though I think that the risk is that the AI would develop a will of its own right off the bat. I think it's more that's the concern is that someone may use it in a way that is bad, and even if they weren't going to use it in a way that's bad, that somebody could take it from them and use it in a way that's bad. That I think is quite a big danger. We are, all of us already are cyborgs. So you have a machine extension of yourself in the form of your phone and your computer and all your applications. You are already superhuman. But by far, you have more power, more capability than the President of the United States had 30 years ago. If you have an internet link, you have an oracle of wisdom, you can communicate to millions of people, you can communicate to the rest of Earth instantly. I mean, these are magical powers that didn't exist not that long ago. So everyone is already superhuman.
I think the singularity is probably the right word, because we just don't know what's going to happen once there's intelligence substantially greater than that of a human brain. I mean, most of the movies and TV featuring AI, they don't describe it in quite the way it's likely to actually take place. But I think you just have to consider, like, even in the benign scenario where if AI is much smarter than a person, what do we do?
Yeah.
What job do we have?
I have to say that when something is a danger to the public, then there needs to be some government agency, like regulators. The fact is, like, we've got regulators in the aircraft industry, car industry, with drugs, food, and anything that's sort of a public risk. I mean, I think this has to fall into the category of a public risk. Usually there'll be some new technology. It will cause damage or death. There will be an outcry. There will be an investigation. Years will pass. There will be some sort of insight committee. There will be rulemaking. Then there will be oversight, eventually regulations. This all takes many years. This is the normal course of things. If you look at, say, automotive regulations, how long did it take for seatbelts to be implemented, to be required? The auto industry fought seatbelts, I think, for more than a decade. Successfully fought any regulations on seatbelts, even though the numbers were extremely obvious. If you had a seatbelt on, you would be far less likely to die or be seriously injured. It was unequivocal. And the industry fought this for years, successfully. Eventually, after many, many people died, regulators insisted on seatbelts. This time frame is not relevant to AI. You can't take 10 years from the point at which it's dangerous. It's too late.
I'm not normally an advocate of regulation and oversight. I mean, I think one should generally err on the side of minimizing those things. But this is a case where you have a very serious danger to the public. And so therefore there needs to be a public body that has insight and then oversight on to confirm that everyone is developing AI safely. This is extremely important. I think the danger of AI is much greater than the danger of nuclear warheads by a lot. And nobody would suggest that we allow anyone to just build nuclear warheads if they want. That would be insane. So why do we have no regulatory oversight? This is insane.
And the intent with OpenAI is to democratize AI power. There's a quote that I love from Lord Acton. He was the guy that came up with power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely, which is that freedom consists of the distribution of power and despotism in its concentration. And so I think it's important, if we have this incredible power of AI, that it not be concentrated in the hands of a few and potentially lead to a world that we don't want.
I'm not really all that worried about the short-term stuff. The things that are, like narrow AI is not a species-level risk. It will result in dislocation, in lost jobs, and sort of better weaponry and that kind of thing. But it is not a fundamental species-level risk, whereas digital superintelligence is. So it's really all about laying the groundwork to make sure that if humanity collectively decides that creating digital superintelligence is the right move, then we should do so very, very carefully. Very, very carefully.
We're rapidly headed towards digital superintelligence that far exceeds any human. I think it's very obvious.
That was Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, a man who is a billionaire, afraid of nothing, and he says it scares the hell out of him. Now, I'm not saying that to scare you guys. I'm just showing you the reality of we're so busy watching this idiot in the White House that is a bumbling idiot, and we all feel like we're a lot smarter than he is, when it isn't really him that we should be afraid of at all. There's a lot of things out there that we should fear, but it isn't really what is being done in front of us. It's what's being done behind the walls. It's like the Wizard of Oz. Ignore the man, behind the curtain. It's really beyond that. But in the valley of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and that one eye is the eye of insight. And if you don't have the insight, and I think many of us do, and I think this is why us, when I say that, we the people, you're seeing a mass exodus from the cities. Where are they going? They're going back to the small towns that are maybe so far behind the times that all of that technology may not even work. It's only in the big cities with smart highways, smart everything, smart cars that drive themselves. They won't even work out here. It'll be probably a decade or more. He says, I'm not worried about it in the short term. It's the long term. Digital superintelligence. What happens to humans when computers are smarter, when they're able to do everything? Yeah, bye-bye. So could it be that what we're seeing happening right now with the Bill Gates of the world that is absolutely aware of this digital superhuman intelligence, that he is now buying up farmland, as we see all these things, and trying to mitigate the growth of humanity and maximize the growth of digital superhuman intelligence, or whatever you want to call that, AI, artificial intelligence.
I was just thinking about a couple, because I really enjoy science fiction, and there was a movie long ago, at least 25 years ago, and still it's staying in my mind. Supposedly, Russia and the United States had developed these computers. One was called Colossus, and the other one was the Guardian. They put them in control, so it came to the point where they just meshed, and then they had those two computers had control over all of humanity. It was really unusual. And talking about artificial intelligence, you can put this data in. What controls humans? What will they go through before they fight back? And how to keep withdrawing, going back and forth. It'll drive you mad if you think about it, but that's the whole point. I mean, they've got computers creating all these scenarios for them, how to control situations and how to control our people.
It's interesting if you step way back and look at what is the solution for this? How can we possibly beat this? First of all, you have to be able to live off the land. You have to be able to kind of start over again, be able to grow your own food and not be in need of all of this intelligence. They've handed us these little computers, like Elon Musk said. If you listen to Elon Musk very carefully, he gave us all the keys of how they're turning us into cyborgs. Our little computers are listening to everything we say to each other. They're monitoring things we say, through text and through communication to others as well. So one is listening to what's going on in your home, in your bedroom, in your bathroom, and then how you communicate with others in other homes. And then, have you heard the newest thing is that they're going to monitor all of your pictures. Now, I have 66,559 pictures in my phone, okay? They monitor every one of those pictures. So that is called data. They're watching all of our data, and they're starting to create algorithms to be able to know exactly our habits and where we go and what we do and how we talk about things. And we try and have code. Have you ever tried to send an email to somebody in code like, I know the Big Brother's watching? So you're like, yes, I've got the stuff. The stuff being medicine, maybe. Somebody said the other day that they had COVID, and they're like, do you have any of... can't remember what it's called, but that stuff. And I go, yes, I have the stuff. I don't even want to give the name out, right? Because maybe at some point I'm going to be considered an illegal drug pusher. They'll find a way to do something. So at a certain point, we got to put these phones down, and we got to be careful and thoughtful. And I believe that point is coming to us right now. We've already given away all of our data in the car. When you're in the car, the new cars are even collecting data, and it's all for supposedly your convenience. So the car is learning you so it can be more convenient. And we, of course, sit back and go, oh, this is nice. And we kind of like it because it makes our lives easier. And at a certain point, we're just going to be like Pinky in the Brain, just a head in a glass bubble. So we have to be very careful with this.
If you just look at China and how they are using AI, facial recognition everywhere, so they know ultimately, it's to control the individual. No religion. You worship the state. That's it. The state is God. Ultimately, and we've all read about in Revelation, and it's probably going to be used through AI. And then I just heard that they're getting ready to sign something in Congress, this big bill, that by 2030, all of the new cars will have facial recognition and breath analyzing. I mean, it's getting down to where it's really they want to control every aspect of your life.
As we all know, Roy Masters, my dad, has been warning us of these times for 50 years because he lived through World War II and all of that ugliness, when he was a young boy and on into his young manhood. But what I realize is, and it was in a contract once upon a time that I created, and my attorney said, listen, you want to own the rights to this, and even things that are not yet invented in this realm. And I said, well, how do we know what that is? He says, well, it doesn't matter because things are getting invented all the time. So you have to make sure you own the rights to this thing you're doing, and even things in this realm that are not yet invented. So that if somebody invents something like artificial intelligence or whatever it is, or the ability for the facial recognition when you get in your car, and you're the guy who has the patent on the key, well, the key doesn't, who uses their key? If you have a new car anymore, the key stays in your pocket. It's got Bluetooth technology. The car knows when you walk up to it, it unlocks. Who would have ever thought that? Unless you were watching, of course, like I was, the Jetsons when you were a kid. That's all the stuff they had. And 1967 and 8 or whatever year, Star Trek, and they had the little thing that they could talk like a cell phone. There were people that foresaw this, not just Nostradamus. Roy Masters, my dad, he saw all these things coming, not even yet invented, but he knew something wicked this way come. That was how he kind of phrased it to all of us. Now, there was a movie called Something Wicked This Way Come, but it's the same principle. People are moving out of the big cities because they feel something wicked this way come. And boy, here it is. The clouds are starting to mound up in the sky. I was watching the other day these videos that were online of these clouds, and they sped them up, and you could see them moving, and it's so interesting to watch clouds and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And then I saw a comment from a pilot that I know who owns an aircraft, and he had to study all these things, and he gave me the weight of a typical cirrus cloud or something, some kind of cloud, and it was millions upon millions of pounds. Now, the mind's eye sees the cloud and goes, oh, puffy cloud floating in the sky, zero weight. No, millions upon millions upon millions of pounds. It was like I looked at that and I wanted to go, did you make a mistake here? Is this a joke? But then he gave the explanation. There's all the moisture that's in the clouds, and it's, water. What is it, 8 pounds per gallon or something? 7 pounds? 8.34. See, look at, even in this room, we got people arguing, how much a pound of whatever, of liquid weighs. But the point is that our mind is not to be trusted a lot of times. You have to trust your intuition, which is the wordless word. We've heard my dad say that a million times, because everybody's going to have a different story. Right now, we were talking again about all this before the talk. Just for a few minutes, we round table, kind of everybody sit around talking about this new Delta variant. I thought, oh boy, Delta Airlines is really screwed because now they've got a Delta variant of the COVID virus, And I just flew on Delta, and I had to wear a mask the whole time. And fortunately, I fly so much that I got upgraded to first class, and I was in 1C, which is literally the aisle in the front, and I'm like nose to nose, face to face with the stewardess facing me. So I can't cheat. I can't take my nose out and breathe and have a naked nose for a minute. So when she wasn't sitting in that chair, as soon as she would walk past me, I'd go, I get some air. You're breathing all these germs out of your mouth, breathing them back into your system. And I tell you, it's not a psychosomatic thing for me. I just can't breathe when I have a mask on. I feel like I can't get enough air. So I kind of pull the sides of my mask open, and try to make it to where air can come in, which is then not being filtered, right? And I heard another person say that literally these masks that they're having us wear is the equivalent of a chain link fence to a mosquito. That doesn't stop the mosquito, does it? And that's the equivalent of the size of the virus compared to these masks that we're wearing. So, and then also, I was kind of proud of myself. I always keep a mask in my pocket in case some idiot, what is the old saying? Better fight another day, run away or walk away and fight another day. So I don't want to argue with people. If they want me to wear a mask, I put a mask on. Unless, of course, something says, nope, you're going to stand up and defy the situation. But for the most part, so I had a mask in my pocket for maybe a month, and I would wear it every so often. And then I took it to New York with me, and I started noticing by the second day, that mask was getting stinky. It just had an odor to it. And I thought, isn't that funny? And then I was talking to one of my buddies. They're like, yeah, you got to wash those masks every day. And then I go way back to when I was 17 years old and started painting cars. I bought a mask to be able to paint cars, and it had nice filters on it that I didn't change for 2 years. So I went in one day and I said, hey, some stuff fell out of this mask onto my paint job. And the guy at the counter, he says, well, when was the last time you changed the filter? I go, change the filter? I said, I've had it for 2 years and painted probably 100 cars. He goes, oh my God, you're supposed to change the filter every time you paint a car. He goes, amazing, you're not even like in the hospital right now. So my weakness, of course, is my lungs. So when I had COVID, I didn't mess around because my lungs definitely got damaged from painting cars when I was a kid. Now that was 42 years ago. So there's been a lot of time for my body to repair itself, and the body is amazing, but I knew I would not take chances because if I have a weakness, it's in my lungs. And if I go around where they're painting cars, I'll start wheezing. So my body says to me, yeah, that's your weakness. You caused it from not being conscious and aware. I didn't do my research, so I just kept painting cars, putting my mask on, useless as it was. But my oxygen level was at 86%, and that's when I checked myself into the cute little hospital in Ashland, Oregon that specializes in COVID at that time. and they gave me remdesivir and some monoclonal antibodies, and I was better. Like immediately, I was better. But if you have some sort of a deficiency that you have even created for your own self through living your life, you have to be cautious. And you need to make sure that you go to Americas with an S, americasfrontlinedoctors.com, and you need to go and fill out their thing, and they'll do a phone visit with you, and then you can order ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, and whatever else you may need, a Z-Pack, so that if you do get this and you start getting sick, you have what you need in your drawer, not waiting to get it because really it's important. This is just like a really bad flu. And we have a nurse that's in here with us today, and she says it used to be that there was MRSA. They would put MRSA on the doors of people that were sick. She says, you don't see that anymore. And you don't see people that have the flu anymore. All of a sudden, everybody across the board has COVID. And then, of course, we've all heard all the stories about, I'll give you a bad example, but it's a funny example. The guy was a skydiver, and he jumped out of the airplane, and his parachute didn't open, and he hits the ground and splat. Oh, he died of COVID when he went to the hospital. They took his body to the hospital. He died of COVID. So you're not really getting the real reason why people are dying. You're getting the reason that they want you to hear. And it's all, again, about the fear tactics. And then, since we're talking about COVID and all this, the fear and all the rest of it, I'm a part of a group of journalists that is an international group. And I've known some of these people for 25 and 28 years, long time. And you watch their lives, and you kind of track with them a little bit through social media. And the ones that have been poked, what are they calling it now? Is it poked? Jabbed. That's the new word, is jabbed. I think it's just so funny. They are like Gestapo. You are a lower class of human life. It's amazing. So this is the next thing that we're going to see that is going to really ramp up. So if there's anything trending right now, I even saw something this morning in USA Today. They were saying that it's not good to do. There's a lot of hate from the vaccinated towards the unvaccinated, just a lot of junk that is coming out towards the unvaccinated. And they actually said in USA Today, it's not the way to deal with it because you will make those unvaccinated more entrenched into what they believe because you're now treating them like a second-class citizen. So we have much that we will have to endure in the coming months and years, I think. So in the Valley of the Blind, the one-eyed man is king. If you don't have the vision, if you haven't been given the vision and you are not listening or you're not listening to the vision that you've been given, then you're going to be at the wrong place at the wrong time, and you may already be there. But I feel like it's never too late to make the move. So I decided I want to play something of my father's. So I went to FHU.com. I went to the YouTube channel for FHU, and the one that popped up was Taking Back America. It was a good title, so I thought, I'm on my way here. I better listen to it for a couple of minutes. And I'm listening just for a couple minutes, and what does he say? One of the first things he says is he says, well, here we are, and today I want to talk about taking your country back. And he says, and it's very important, and he goes on for a second, and then he comes to this, he says, and he says, because now we have these cameras, these high-definition cameras. This was about 5 or 6 years ago. I thought it was very cute, still talking about high definition. And so he says, and you can watch from anywhere you want in the comfort of your living room, and you don't need to go to church. You don't need to come here. He says, but that's the beauty of all this digital stuff that we have today, is that we almost can't be, like caught in a rat trap. You know what I'm saying? Because they're going to try at some point to gather those up, those people. He says, I could live in Los Angeles, he says, and still have a huge audience. He says, but that's why I live in this little town. He says, it's safer here. And I thought, that's it right there. How many years ago? 42 years ago. He was looking to get out of the city, the big city. He saw this coming 50 years ago. But 42 years ago, he made a conscious decision to move to a little town in Southern Oregon and still talks about his choice and why he did that. And so for those of you who are living in those big cities, and I know a lot of you that are listening right now that are living in those big cities because of your job, because of one thing or another. I'm not going to say family because it may be that, and that's the most painful thing to have to deal with. But sometimes you have to just say goodbye to your family and say, I can't stay here and perish with you. One of the ladies that's in here today said that she's a nurse and that they're talking about making the vaccine mandatory, and that she's like, if that's going to be the way it is, then I'm going to have to take a retirement. See, and I thought, good for you. Good for you that make those choices. Good for you that choose to alter the direction and the path of your life if they try to force their vaccination on you, which we still don't know what the hell's in that thing. But people say this to me, and I've heard this more than anything, but I want to travel. But I want to go to Hawaii. But I want to go here, there, or anywhere. Family members, I want to go fishing and I can't go to this place without the vaccine. Well, go somewhere else where you can go fishing. Go somewhere else where you don't have to take the vaccine. Get another job. Create your own job. That side hustle that you've been doing, garage sailing or whatever it is for all those years that you've enjoyed, and you've gone to that job that you cannot stand, it's time to jump off. The golden parachute is God. And if you stay in that nasty job and get that nasty injection that could be whatever it could be that may not even yet be invented yet, they're going to go, oh, well, we didn't know. We didn't know that this would happen. That's medicine. Haven't we heard that? That's just medicine. Things change all the time. How are we going to know that your liver would die after 3 years? That your heart would no longer, be able to do its thing, and God knows what is going to come. I mean, all of us know secretly that this is the unknown. And you know what? If I'm going to choose an unknown, I'm going to choose one that starts with a G. I'm going to choose God. And because God told us all about all of these things, he told us that something wicked this way come. Follow me. Be still and know that I am God. Now, I don't hear anybody else saying that. I hear everybody else say, take the vaccine, Chicken Little. The sky is falling. And if we're Chicken Littles, we're going to all rush out and take it. And I'm sad to say that many of you listening right now have taken it. And I've gotten letters from you saying, how do I reverse it? I'm sorry. You cannot reverse it. This one, ladies and gentlemen, is not reversible. So be careful before you take the jab. That may be the last step. Who knows?
One of the things that people don't, they put their trust in the wrong place is what it is. Well, the government cares for us, don't they? And no, not everyone, and differs from the degree to degree. The one thing that I used to live in Los Angeles, Burbank, California. It's a wonderful little town. It's away from most of them. But I've noticed one thing, and the homeless situation wasn't bad then, but I have friends that still live there, and I talk to them occasionally. It is really bad. And people don't understand that once we reach a certain plateau and then we go down, where are these people going to go for their food and goodies in the big cities? And you've seen, if you've ever seen on YouTube, they go down Skid Row, and I'm really familiar with that area. They said it was 58,000 that are homeless in there, but it's twice that amount.
So we see what's happening on the borders. And what did Donald Trump want? Borders. And as soon as Puppet Man got in there and he opened up the borders, they came rushing to the borders, and they came rushing with not only just COVID, but all their other diseases intact. And these are carriers. These are literally carriers. Now, I could say that the people that are vaccinated look at us as carriers. The truth is, the people that are coming across the borders are bringing a whole lot worse things with them than just COVID. COVID is just this super cold, super flu. Of course, it's going to take out the weak because only the strongest survive. And I think that if anything, if you looked at kind of what Bill Gates wanted to do, it was to kind of keep the population from getting too out of control. So of course you want to take the weak out. Take the weak out. Get rid of the elderly because, the elderly still remember what it's like to be able to stand up and say what they believe. And the elderly are not afraid to say what they believe. And they love America and they love the flag and they love God and country and family. But the young people today are just confused. They've already kind of been brought up in this woke society that we have. So the ones that are 18, 19, 20 years old, 21, 2, 3, 4, they're messed up already. And those are our future. The children are our future. Well, if the children are our future and the generation that is right now getting ready to vote are already infected, you might say, by the hypnotic states of Americans, then we're in trouble. And then add to that several million illegals that somehow they're going to figure out a way for them to vote. We're in big trouble. But do I say this to scare you, to put you in fear? No. It's a warning call. It's like Elon Musk said, I've warned you. It's like Roy Masters says, I've warned you. So it's just time to take action. When the people that are warning you, people that are like my father, Roy Masters, or even like Elon Musk, talk about an amazing entrepreneur, an amazing man that he's risked all these things to create this car company called Tesla and SpaceX, and he takes over for NASA. I mean, look at that. One man with courage. Look at that. And guess what? When he says, this scares the hell out of me, this is dangerous, he's right. So these warnings. So what do? Do you sit there and go, oh, geez, oh, God, oh, what are we going to do, honey? Or do you go, all right, put the for sale sign up. Let's go find some small town USA and get the hell out. And we're going to be able to watch those cities burn, sadly, which we've been doing lately, even Portland, Oregon. We're in Oregon. And Oregon has like the highest crime rate right now out of everywhere. I think to myself, what? That's 258 miles up the road. 258 miles from where I'm standing right now, where we live in relative peace, is this insanity going on, and you're not safe. And who would have thunk? Portland, Oregon, Seattle. I could see that in Chicago or Detroit, big cities. Minneapolis was always known as kind of a gangster town. Boston, I mean, wherever these big cities are, but not Portland, Oregon. Oh, but you know what? Look who's in charge. Your Democrats in charge of these cities. They let the thieves back out. They're now doing all these horrible things, laughing while they're doing it, because even if they get caught, it's a get out of jail free card because of the Democrats and the Democrats in charge. So we live in a very perilous world.
I think their most important goal is to continue to make us think that there's no hope and that we are the minority. That's why all they show on the news is what they want you to see. In France, there's hundreds of thousands of people protesting. Okay? They don't want you to know that people are rising up against this power grab globally. But I happen to think that while we are watching America's foundation crumble all around us, I believe that a new foundation is being built under the old one. Arizona standing up, recounting the votes, standing up against the federal government. Other states slowly starting to do the same, are going to rebuild the foundation while this one's crumbling. You can't just shut down America. We're too free. We've been free too long. It's not going to work.
Before I go on, I want to play a clip from the Joe Rogan Experience, which is a woman from North Korea who tells a story that is so horrible. And then when all of a sudden you realize this is what could be coming to us. So listen to this.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
When you were talking about going to the doctor when you were a child, and that this is a very disturbing story, but I want you to try to explain it to people, how people were dying in these hospitals and rats would eat the eyeballs of the people who were dying, and children who were starving would eat the rats. And then the children would die and the rats would eat the children.
Yeah.
Explain what this was like, that you how did you see this?
Well, I mean, seeing that the bodies on the streets like everyday thing. It was
Where were the bodies? Like just laying around on the streets?
so they are floating in the rivers, and then they also train stations somehow had a lot of dead bodies because North Korea is very cold, and there's a train waiting area, and North Korea has one train go to one distance like once a month, and like here it would take like 1 hour to go the other place. In North Korea, it take a month at least to go because there's no electricity, and sometimes people have to push the train.
They have to push the train.
Yeah. Traveling in North Korea is an unbelievably difficult thing within North Korea. So, anyway, so in train stations, that's when people die mostly. And in North Korea, the hardest thing as a child for me is that when my mom goes away to find food, we don't have we don't have phones, we don't have letters. If I say goodbye to her, I don't know when I'm gonna see her again, or if I'm ever gonna see her again, because she could have killed and like raped and starved. You just never know how to find people. So in the morning when you go like walk in the train station, they just put the piles of the dead bodies, and they're all like become rigid, right? They're almost like wood, piled them on and taking away. And but the thing is, for me, I didn't even know the word compassion. Like nobody told me you have to feel bad for it, because for me it's like fish in the water don't notice the water, right? Like that. It was like something every day I saw as a child.
So you never went days where you didn't see. This is a normal thing to see dead bodies.
It was every day as like normal as like breathing the air right now. And one thing that I still remember is my sister and I was walking by the well. Like in North Korea, we don't have a switch. We don't have running water, obviously. We have to go to well or river to bring the drinking water. And there's a young teenage boy, I think, lying down, and his intestines coming out of his back. When you're really malnourished, that thing all opens up. You got zero fat. Every hole all opens. And you see dogs looking at his organs coming out. And he was still somehow conscious, begging for food at the time.
He was begging for food while his organs were hanging out of his body.
Yeah. And I don't know why he was like pants were off. And I felt nothing. That still haunts me till this day. Like, I don't know how I felt nothing at that point. And that just looked horrible. And because it's just the fact that he's alive and so much flies flying by on his organs, and how he's somehow consciously begging for food. And I didn't feel anything.
You have felt no compassion?
No.
It was just normal.
Yeah. So that was like daily life thing. And then in the hospital when I was 13 years old, my parents took me to hospital because I was a bad stomachache. And then we don't have like X-ray machines. We don't have MRI, none of that. Just doctor rubs your belly, and then he says, "Oh, we need to operate on her. I think her like appendix were bursting or something." So that afternoon they cut me open without any anesthesia. But it's normal thing. People in North Korea operation without anesthesia. But the chances of you going to surgery is a lot higher for you getting infected because we don't have penicillin. The nurse is using a 1 needle to inject every single patient. So who do you know what the other person has? You get from actually more sick by being in the hospital.
Right.
And this is where we don't, of course, have an indoor bathroom for the patient. We have to go outside. And in between there's a piles of dead human bodies. And that's when I was seeing this, somehow rats eating human eyes first, for some reason.
Because they're probably soft and easy to eat.
And these women, I don't know, in my age probably, short hair, wearing these flower pants, and when they're dead, all like their mouth is somehow open, and their all eyes are hollow, and you see children like looking at the rats and laughing and chasing them, and adults telling them like, "Don't eat those, you're gonna get sick from it." But of course, kids don't care. Like even finding a rat is delicacy, because even finding a snake is a big prize. You don't find those like often.
So they were finding the rats and then just trying to eat them?
Yeah.
Were they eating them raw?
Sometimes if you find the skin, you do, but they do find some like fire and roast them.
So they were excited to find a rat to eat.
Yeah,
So they were catching them with their hands.
Yeah, oh yeah, of course they do catch them around with their hands. And these parts of human bodies, like she was on top. That's why I was able to see her wearing this flower and pants till this. And then like her eyes are so hollow. It's like when you look at the human body, like nothing is left. I think that's what. It's not like just death is sad. It's just like how it becomes nothing. So empty inside. She does not know the shame or pain. Just she was lying there like that. And you see children just chasing them and laughing and try to catch the rats.
And the children didn't feel anything being around the dead bodies. Just it was normal.
It's our daily normal thing. Seeing a death is like our daily life.
And they would eat the rats and then they would get sick and some of them would die.
Yeah. A lot of them die.
And then the rats would eat them.
Yeah. It's like the cycle we talk about. It's like that's a spring is for North Korea, a season of death.
And so the diseases that they would get from the rats, they were willing to risk those diseases just because of hunger.
Because when you're, so there's a North Korean proverb. There's no wish for the person who died after their stomach is full. So even in middle of the earthquake, the North Koreans not try to run. So my mom was talking about the tale when she was in the university. There's earthquake happening. And do you know what these students doing is not running out of the building and try to survive. They go to kitchen. So before they die, they eat at least. So they can die. So if you have that promise of eating a one meal, they're going to risk everything for that.
So it's just an entire country in a perpetual state of starvation.
Yeah. I remember playing with this game with my sister as a young girl. I never ate till I felt full. So I would compare myself. I tell her like I can eat 100 bread, and she's like I can eat the mountains of bread. I can eat like 10,000 more than what you just said, because I don't know the limits of my stomach. Because I never tested it.
So you always were hungry.
Always hungry. Never felt full.
So let me reiterate a couple things she said. What was normal in her life was seeing dead bodies from starving to death or getting sick and dying, and dead bodies floating in the river, the rats eating the eyeballs out of the dead bodies at the hospital, and the kids chasing the rats and catching them because they're so hungry, eating them, and then the kids dying, and then the rats eating the kids. The cycle of life, that's all she knew. That's North Korea. We don't see that on the news. We don't see that there's no electricity. She says it's the darkest place on earth. No electricity, no running water. They have to get the water from the river or whatever. She's 27, 8, 9 years old, whatever she is. She weighs like 80 pounds. She's now in America, but she says the average height of the men there is 4'10". And if you're over 4'10", you go right into the army and you have to stay there for 13 years, mandatory. I think my wife says they all have to go, but I all I can say is the average height, 4'10". Why? Malnutrition. And that Kim Jong-un or whatever his name is, he puts that smiling face on. He's as fat as a fat cat, and everybody there's starving to death. He doesn't give them food. They don't do anything for them. They just survival of the fittest. So if we're going to be the survival of the fittest, well, I'm going to be ready. I'm going to be ready. And I have a friend who lives in Chicago. He texts me all the time. He's ex-military. And I'll tell you what, thank God for our military and our ex-military, because I think there are a lot of them are going to be quitting if they're going to mandate military getting vaccinations. A lot of them are going to be dropping out due to, whatever you want to call it, conscientious objection or whatever. It'll be religious objection to the vaccine. But we're going to have, like the Chinese said, a gun behind every blade of grass. That's why they don't attack us, because we're individuals. We're individuals. And then they will have to band together. And the military folks are the ones that are going to be banding people together, because everybody that knows one person in the military sees a man with a backbone, or even a woman with a backbone that's been in the military. They're not afraid to stand up or not afraid to hide until the time is right. I remember Sound of Music. Remember The Sound of Music when they were in the church and the bad guys, the Nazis were looking for them and they were hiding. And that's going to be us at some point. But where we are right now, I think, is you better head for the hills. I'm saying this. I'm second generation to the man that has been saying this for 50 years, who did it himself 42 years ago by buying Tall Timber Ranch and moving his whole family out of beautiful Southern California. We lived on the beach, had the life of Riley, and my dad says, we're all moving up to Oregon. Come on, let's go up. It's not safe here anymore. And you know what? I'm not saying Oregon's a place, but I got to tell you, my son is in Idaho right now working on a house, and all my friends are like, Idaho's a place to go. The price of real estate is quadrupled in Idaho. It's doubled here in Southern Oregon. It's doubled in every small town across America. The reason is people are taking their California money, their Chicago money, their New York money, and they're going out and they're buying a house in the town that they grew up in or the town that they've always wanted to go to. I was in New York talking to a head of design for a major auto manufacturer company over dinner. I won't tell you which one because it's his business. And we were talking about all this stuff. And just so you know, quietly, these folks that are in big industry, big manufacturing, cars. I mean, look at Elon Musk. He just said it a little while ago. People are awake, but not all people are awake. There are those remember the movie The Matrix? There's the people that go through life asleep, and then there's the ones that are conscious, and they know something is wrong. They just don't quite know how to put their finger on it, so they're careful who they speak to. But he unloaded on me saying, I'm out of here. And he is a high-paid, high-powered designer from a car company, which is you work your life to get to that position. It doesn't matter to him. It doesn't matter to our nurse that she's in the best years of her life for nursing. It doesn't matter what job you have or how much you make. Is your family's life worth all that? You're going to risk or gamble your family's life for the high-paying job, the high-powered job, the fancy title, the fancy business card? Not this guy. He says, I'm going. I'm looking at Colorado. And he lives in Detroit. He says, I would have never thought I'd spent 30 years in Detroit. He goes, but I'm getting the hell out. And there are a lot of people that live their lives. They're conscious of what's going on. They hear the calling. But right now, they know their feet are starting to get restless. I got to get out. I got to get out. And if your feet are restless and you are starting to kind of hear the calling because you can see the clouds mounting up on top of each other, something wicked this way come, you better heed that warning. This could be the last warning you may get. So, because I don't want to beat on, I want to be one of those conspiracy theorist guys. My best friend in the whole world, he was the best man at my wedding and I was the best man at his wedding. He grew up with my father. His parents were just useless and threw him away. He was a throwaway child. So we took him in. But he just got vaccinated. His family got vaccinated. He thinks I am a conspiracy theorist, even though he grew up with my father. My father's teachings and all the rest, he has yet to start to listen to all. His whole life is a misery. I tell him all the time, do you meditate? No, I probably should. What's it been, 50 years? When are you going to start? So he says to me the other day, he says, my son, if I had to do it all over again, he says, he's like Eeyore. Goes through life, everything is, I don't know, He says, I don't know what I did wrong. I said, I know what you did wrong. You were selfish. What can I say? He thinks I'm a conspiracy theorist. I think he's asleep at the wheel. So listen, all I can tell you is your family members will tell you you're crazy. I have family members that tell me I'm crazy. They take the vaccine. That's your choice. That's your choice. You got to make that choice. And you know what? If fear has pushed you into making that choice, well, I don't know what the outcome is. It's not a death sentence. I don't think it's a death sentence, but we don't know yet. It has not yet been invented what's going to happen. And maybe you'll be able to outlive it. I have a friend that says he has prostate cancer. And I said, what are you going to do? He says, nothing. He says, I'm going to outlive it. The doctor told me that I would probably outlive it anyway. And I said, well, good for you. And he said, but you know what? You shouldn't do nothing. You should eat better. You should stop doing all the things that you could attribute to why you may have that cancer. You should look at your life. I said to him, he's an attorney friend of mine. I said, you need to maybe learn how to meditate, be still, ask God. So I don't ever shut up about this stuff. I'm like my dad. My dad used to get into the elevator no matter where it was, and before you could get to 3 floors, they'd both step out into the hall, and we'd be like, Dad, come on. No, I might be able to help that man, right? And it was like, are you kidding me? And so I find myself doing that now. Somebody says, how you doing? I'm doing good. How you do? You look like you might have some problems there. You look like you're carrying the world. Oh, you know. And I go, well, here, come here. Let's step outside and talk. I never got it before, but now I get it. If God gives you this consciousness that is a gift, you got to share it. It's manna from heaven. And if you hoard it, if you just become selfish with it and you create this big mansion and you live in this mansion all by yourself, happy, you will find that you are not happy. You will not find joy because you have not done what God empowered you to do. Each one of us, as we go through our lives, we're supposed to open our mouths and communicate. That's why we have language. And we're supposed to communicate God's word. And God puts his word, his understanding in your heart. And then you figure out how to share that with your friend. It's going to be in a different language, maybe Spanish, maybe Polish, whatever it may be. It's going to be in a different way of saying it, a different delivery mechanism. But if you deliver something from God, then it's the seed that grows inside that person. And as a matter of fact, the guy I was sitting next to that shared something with me in New York, it was a very strange thing. At the end of the dinner, he says, look, I'm not trying to blow smoke up your butt, which I think is a really funny thing to say to anybody, because why would you do that? But he says to me, 11 years ago, I talked to you. He says, and 11 years ago, I walked away and you made me feel good. And I thought, isn't that interesting? He says, and I've never forgotten you. Now, I don't know what we talked about. I don't know why he felt that way, but I put something in him, some little kindness or whatever it was that I put in him, and it stayed in there and it lived. And then when I had a chance to talk to him again, he felt compelled 11 years later to say that to me. And I thought, how many times have I heard somebody say that to my father, that because of you, and it may have been some strange little thing he said that just pricked their conscience enough to wake them up to ask God for guidance. Because you cannot get all the answers from man. You must go to your Father in heaven who is inside of you. You must go inward, intuition, and find the answers within. But that man that helps to wake you up, that saves you as you're about to walk in front of a speeding car and goes, hey, grabs your arm, pulls you, wow, you saved my life. You never forget that guy, ever. Ever, ever, ever. But really, God was in that equation, wasn't he? God put that man there that day to save your life because you mean something to your Father in heaven. And so if you're listening to this right now, it's because you mean something to your Father in heaven. He's using me to tell you that. The same as John Voight said that he was on the ground, pounding the floors, crying, why does it have to be so difficult? He wasn't even really asking anyone. He wasn't going, God, why is it so difficult? Just why does it have to be so difficult? And God chose that very moment in time to whisper in his ear, it's supposed to be difficult. And he says, you're there. You heard me crying in the darkness. You heard me at my lowest point. You're there. He is there. We don't take the time to appreciate and to give him our consciousness. We use our time to make ourselves feel better.
When you speak, I have a lot of little things that come up, examples of what happens. I don't know if other people feel this way too, but when you said you never forget somebody's name, I know a Marine who was in Beirut when it was bombed, and he was buried for 3 days in the ground. And he knows the dog that sniffed him out. He knows the name of that dog.
Exactly, because, if it wasn't for that dog, he would have died. So absolutely. And that's why people love my father so much, because he helped to wake them up from that hypnotic state that sadly we inherited from our parents. We inherit it from the original sin that happened, the excuse that was made. And then we start making excuses, and we become part of the chain, just the chain that holds us to this crazy life that we have, instead of living a better life and becoming the weakest link in that chain. And I see with my children, I'm very blessed that my children are out in the world now doing their thing. And I got a text from a man the other day. He doesn't know what the FHU is. He doesn't really understand, but he's a searching man. And he said, I really appreciate when a child honors the father by saying that's where he got his wisdom from, which is what evidently my son did for me. And I told my wife, I said, I'm so happy that he doesn't, it's not like I want to be recognized for that, but my son loves me enough to weave me into his conversation with somebody else the way I do with my dad, because I love where he was coming from. Because none of us are perfect, and this is the one son that I had issues with, that kind of went off and to do his own thing in life the way most of us do. But I didn't deny him his right to make mistakes. And because of that, he is now coming around. He's like, wow, maybe Dad was a little bit right about this stuff. Of which you'll find out as his life goes on, that we all say that about when our parents warn us, or if the preacher warns us and we wake up one day and go, boy, that guy was right, or that person was right. But I'm at this stage of my life where the ripple effect of my life now is so much stronger. It's not like a pebble has been thrown into my little pond. It's like I heave big boulders out into the middle now. So it's not little ripples, it's waves. And my friends are having to wake up. They're communicating to me in such a way that they actually appreciate it, because the stronger I am in my belief, and the stronger I am in my convictions, and the stronger I am in how I live my life, it ripples out with waves that hit my friends. You've seen people get knocked over. They're standing in the surf, and here comes the big cleanup wave. I'm going to be that cleanup guy at this point, because I'm not going to hang and be friends with people that are on the fence. I'm going to knock them off the fence. And they're going to stand up and go, hey, what was that for? I'm like, you got to wake up. Otherwise, you go your way and I'm going to go mine. And we got to make those stands in life.
Paul said, I think that the only thing that I bring with me is the souls that I have saved. Now, this is the guy that held Stephen's clothing when stoned him. Yeah, shot the arrows or martyred him. Thank you. But when you speak, all of these things come into my head. When Jan says, the Chinese are really developing this AI system, what they're doing is they're taking it and selling it to Africa in different places. And they're having the Africans paint lines on their doorways so they know how tall the people are. This is like at 7-Eleven and stuff, so that they can gather more information on them. You were talking about AI and how serious this intelligence is. General Motors had a problem with their automating their robots. To put these two robots were integrating these parts, how they would move them out. One robot would do it and something else would do it, and they were having trouble synchronizing these things. So somebody said, well, listen, let them talk to each other, and maybe they can work it out themselves, because we have the programs, we just don't, So they did that. And then they found out that the robots developed a language which they couldn't understand. Not a whole lot of language, but just a few things that they could do. When they found this out, they were very concerned. And of course, they deleted the thing and stopped it immediately. But this was over 10 years ago that this happened. And General Motors.
Well, that's why you hear Elon Musk saying, this scares me, because he knows about these kinds of things. So, yes, something wicked is coming our way. It's already here. But it's, I believe, far more wicked than you could probably imagine with your own mind, because the computers, the artificial intelligence. Listen, we have a hard time with just being human intelligent. We're just, we're more animal than we are human in many ways.
It just hit me that these machines don't have they don't have a conscience. What they're programmed to do, they do.
Roger over there just said it. The computers started communicating with their own language. And so at some point, remember the movie, I think, what was it called with Terminator, but I mean, there's, so many movies. One, I think it had Will Smith in it. iRobot, thank you. Listen, it's just like 1984. We're watching 1984 happen to us. We're going to be watching, and very soon, iRobot and Terminator and all these, the Matrix, we're going to be watching all these things happen and go, wow, I think we all ought to just be really conscious of what we're talking about today. Make sure that we go to our Father in heaven for guidance and take it seriously, because a lot of folks didn't. We here in this small town, in this room right now, we're much safer because we're in a small town. And for those listening around the world, if you're in a small town, you may be just fine. But for those in the big cities, you need to ask. You need to really do some serious, have some good conversations with the Father in heaven, because I don't know. I feel like my whole life is changing. Everything that I've been doing, I don't want to do anymore. So when I hear my friend across from me that's saying, well, I'll just take retirement if they think they're going to get me to take that stupid vaccine, and she's in the medical industry, I think, I guess I won't be traveling that much anymore. And I bought a tractor, and I bought implements and tools and things. If I need to farm, the only thing I'm lacking right now is some seeds. Honey, let's get some seeds. Because I think, we need to be prepared for what could be a very dark winter. And I don't want to sit there and go, why, Lord? Why? Why me? And God says, I sent 2 boats and a helicopter, in the flood, and you didn't take any of them. That's an old joke that I used to tell, and I won't tell it again, but God is sending us all these warning signs. And if we don't listen, then it's our fault. It's our problem. Thanks for supporting the foundation. If you want to send me an email, alan@fhu.com. See you next week.